The galactic capital was a monument to arrogance, rings of gold, orbiting a red dwarf, each shining with the wealth of 1,000 conquered worlds. Within its heart, the Emperor's hall glittered with cruel beauty. Jeweled floors, thrones of living metal, and 1,000 eyes fixed upon the single being who stood at its center. She looked terribly small among them. One human woman, unarmed, wearing a charcoal gray suit and a calm, unreadable smile. Evelyn Cross did not flinch when the Emperor rose. His species, the Krythar, were famed for their grandeur. Skin like molten copper, eyes like shattered stars. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the air as if the chamber itself bowed to him. By decree of the Eternal Empire, he announced, the planet called Earth is hereby charged with willful insubordination, cultural contamination, and refusal to obey Galactic Protocol 7C. His mouth twisted in contempt. The Empire therefore declares war upon humanity. The court erupted. Some in applause, others in laughter. Ministers leaned to each other, whispering gleefully. Finally, crooned a violet-scaled senator, the primitives will learn obedience. Another, a tall insectoid, clacked her mandibles. I've seen the humans' architecture. They still use wood. Adorable. Evelyn's gaze wandered lazily across them, as if assessing the decor instead of the verdict of annihilation. She had been warned of the Empire's theatrics, but she hadn't expected quite so much pomp. It reminded her faintly of an old Earth Awards show. Too much glitter, not enough class. War, she said softly, more to herself than anyone else. Well, it's finally time. The words slipped out like the sigh of someone who'd been waiting years for a train to arrive. The Emperor leaned forward, golden crest quivering. Do you comprehend the gravity of your situation, human? He thundered. You stand before the might of the galaxy. Your species will be erased from the archives of existence. Evelyn tilted her head, her brown hair glinting in the artificial light. Oh, Your Majesty, she replied politely. I do understand. But tell me, when you erase a file from your system, does it stop existing? Or does it just wait in the recycle bin? A murmur rippled through the crowd. The Emperor's expression flickered. Just for a second. Evelyn smiled, serene as a saint. She had always liked metaphors. They gave people the illusion of comprehension. To her right, an alien official from the YLT delegation raised a trembling tendril. Ambassador Cross, it hissed. Are you implying your species has prepared for this? Evelyn took a slow sip of the black coffee in her hand. She had brought her own mug, a souvenir from Houston, depicting a cat in a spacesuit with the phrase "Don't panic." Prepared? She echoed. No, not quite. We just stopped pretending we weren't. The court erupted again, but now unease wove through the laughter. Somewhere near the back, a historian whispered, I told you, never provoke a species that jokes about its own extinction. The Emperor slammed his war staff against the ground, making the chamber tremble. Enough riddles, he roared. By dawn cycle, your world will burn. His tone was ceremonial, but Evelyn saw the faint flicker of insecurity in the movement of his eyes. He was used to subjects begging, not smiling. She set her cup down carefully on the edge of the dais. Before you begin, she said, her voice low and even, I do hope you've said goodbye to your moons. The silence that followed was exquisite, dense, stunned, almost sacred. Even the Emperor hesitated. Our moons, he repeated. Yes, Evelyn replied sweetly. They're quite lovely. It would be a shame if you lost them before breakfast. One of the generals, a crimson-armored brute, snarled. Is that a threat, human? Evelyn shrugged, as if embarrassed by the suggestion. Oh no. Merely a prediction. From the shadows behind her, a faint blue shimmer flickered across the air. A communication relay visible only for an instant. A voice whispered in her ear, nearly inaudible to anyone else. Phase 1 complete, ma'am. The signal's confirmed. Her expression did not change, though her pulse steadied, almost satisfied. She had spent years negotiating, smiling, pretending to be harmless while the real work happened far from the Empire's eyes. For every insult humans had endured, for every treaty designed to humiliate Earth, she had filed the data, recorded their arrogance and waited. The war declaration was not a disaster. It was a door finally opening. The Emperor leaned down, studying her face as though searching for weakness. "You do not look afraid." Evelyn met his gaze evenly. "I used to be," she said, "before I realized that fear is just preparation in disguise." He recoiled slightly, uncertain whether she had confessed or threatened. The court buzzed again, low, anxious, confused. Words like primitive, unpredictable, and unstable floated through the air. Evelyn let them speak. It gave her time to breathe in the heavy, perfumed atmosphere of alien power and deceit. The Empire's heart was as beautiful as it was brittle. Everything gleamed, but nothing grew. 1,000 worlds conquered, yet not one truly understood. That was their flaw. They studied physics and politics, but never people. A messenger drone zipped through the air and stopped before her. Its light blinked twice, the prearranged code. Evelyn lifted an eyebrow. So soon? She glanced at the Emperor, who watched her every movement. "Oh," she murmured. "I suppose we've begun." "What have you begun?" he demanded. She looked up at him, her tone as soft as a lullaby. "History." Her wrist console pulsed once, a message from Earth Command. Operation Mirror Field active. All enemy targeting systems compromised. The transmission dissolved before anyone else could intercept it. Evelyn's gaze swept the assembly. "I know this chamber prides itself on history," she said conversationally. "The rise and fall of empires, the triumph of order over chaos, all that. But you missed a pattern." She leaned forward slightly, her voice intimate now. "Every time a tyrant believes he's the center of the story, he discovers he's just the prologue." The Emperor's breath hitched. "Are you threatening the Empire?" Evelyn smiled. "No, Your Majesty. I'm simply reminding you of narrative structure." The lights dimmed unexpectedly, the energy fields flickering. Several delegates gasped. The chamber's control systems glitched, then stabilized. Evelyn didn't move. She only brushed imaginary dust from her sleeve, as though this were all according to plan. "Malfunction," the Emperor barked. "Nothing serious," Evelyn said mildly. "Just the universe adjusting to your new chapter." A nervous guard stepped closer to her, his weapon humming. "If you attempt sabotage." "Sabotage," she echoed. "I'm a diplomat. I don't start wars." She met the Emperor's gaze again, her voice softening until it was almost kind. "But I do end conversations." Then she straightened her collar, lifted her coffee again, and looked around the glittering chamber one last time. The entire hall, thousands of alien dignitaries, watched her in silence, their confidence cracking like glass. Outside, unseen beyond the imperial windows, a faint shimmer moved across the void. The invisible curtain of Earth's fleet aligning, far too close for the Empire's sensors to detect. Evelyn set her mug down, smiled gently, and said the words that would echo across 1,000 worlds. "You declared war right on schedule." The lights flared white. Somewhere deep in the void, something ancient and human began to wake. The Emperor's warship hung above the galactic capital like a god's blade, casting a shadow that spanned continents. Beneath it, the Imperial Armada assembled in silence, rows upon rows of Leviathan ships forged from crushed worlds. Each vessel carried the same purpose: to remind lesser species that resistance was not merely futile, it was theatrical suicide. But even amid the grandeur, there was unease. Humans had not panicked. They had not begged. And that terrified the Empire far more than defiance ever could. Inside the command spire, Admiral Vorin paced in front of his officers, claws clicking against the obsidian floor. "Deploy every fleet within 2 sectors, he barked. "The humans will be ashes before they finish their next broadcast." He tried to sound confident, but the words trembled beneath their own weight. Behind him, a massive screen displayed Evelyn Cross's image, frozen mid-smile. That faint smirk had infected the entire council like a virus. At the other end of the chamber, Ambassador Cross herself stood with an imperial escort, her hands politely folded behind her back, as though she were visiting a museum. Through the glass walls, the endless machinery of war unfolded, a vision of arrogance masquerading as destiny. She admired the precision. Humanity used to worship efficiency too, before they learned what it cost. Do your fleets always gather this slowly? She asked lightly. It's just, on Earth, when someone declares war, they usually at least look busy. Vorin froze. Your mockery will not save your planet. Oh, I know, Evelyn said, feigning sympathy. You'll do that all by yourselves. The officers hissed in outrage, but she remained calm, studying the vast screens filled with red tactical icons. Her eyes flickered with quiet calculation, like someone solving a familiar riddle. Every second she watched was a second transmitted to the invisible human relay ships cloaked far beyond the system's edge. Humanity didn't need spies, they just needed good timing. Vorin gestured toward a projection of Earth. You will witness the first strike, he growled. So you may understand what defiance earns. The Emperor's voice filled the hall through a golden comm sphere. Let her watch. Let all of them watch. By dawn, their blue world will be blackened glass. Evelyn inclined her head slightly, as though honoring a toast. You might want to stand back from the window then. The Admiral sneered. Are you threatening? I'm warning, she interrupted softly. Big difference. She watched as the first superweapon, a planet-killer cannon known as the Dawn Shard, charged to full capacity. Its energy core burned brighter than a sun, painting the chamber in red light. Even the Emperor's face looked uneasy within it, though he would never admit fear. Evelyn thought of Earth then, its messy, loud, contradictory beauty. The sound of traffic after rain. The taste of burnt coffee and victory at 3 a.m. The ridiculous bravery of a species that still made jokes at funerals. Humanity was far from perfect, but it had one survival trait no empire had ever replicated. They learned from pain. The countdown began. 10, 9, 8. The Emperor's generals raised their fists, eager for spectacle. Evelyn closed her eyes, not in prayer but in composure. At 3, the cannon released its full fury, a torrent of crimson light that vanished into the void, bound for Earth. Silence followed. Then applause, wild and deafening. Vorin smiled cruelly. There. The age of humans ends. Evelyn didn't respond. She only listened, to the faint hum of her wrist console as it vibrated once. The code was simple, interception complete. Beam neutralized. The Admiral noticed her stillness. You appear disappointed, Ambassador. Oh, not disappointed, she murmured. Just curious. Did you actually think it would reach us? His ridged brow furrowed. What? Another officer turned toward the displays, confusion spreading. The data feed from the Dawn Shard flickered. The trajectory graph blinked, then dissolved entirely. No impact detected. No explosion. No debris. It was as if the weapon's energy had been swallowed by empty space. Evelyn smiled faintly. You should check your satellites. Technicians scrambled. One gasped. Admiral, the beam collapsed at origin. The energy turned back, reversed polarity. Before the sentence finished, alarms screamed. A tremor rattled the tower. Across the capital's upper orbit, hundreds of energy reactors blinked out like dying candles. The Empire's fleets faltered, lights dimming, engines stuttering. Evelyn's reflection in the glass remained steady, serene amid chaos. Vorin spun toward her. What did you do? Me? She raised her brows. You fired first. Congratulations, you just activated the clause you signed last century. The what? The Defensive Autonomy Accord. Paragraph 17. She stepped closer, voice soft as silk. In the event that any foreign power attacks Earth without provocation, every pre-approved satellite relay built under the Empire's own communications network automatically shifts control to, well, us. The Emperor's voice cracked through the comsphere. Impossible. Evelyn said. That's what Napoleon said too. The Admiral drew his plasma blade in fury. You will tell us how to reverse it. She regarded the glowing weapon, unimpressed. Oh, Admiral. Humans spent centuries learning how to fight wars they didn't start. You think we'd come to the table without backup? The room darkened as power rerouted. Outside, the horizon shimmered, a faint ripple where cloaked human ships began to reveal themselves. Massive, blunt, utilitarian vessels, ugly by imperial standards but unmistakably alive with purpose. The soldiers in the room stared at the unfolding formation, realization dawning like dread. Voren's voice faltered. You brought your fleet here?" "Not here," she corrected gently. "They were already orbiting you. You just didn't notice." He lunged forward. The guards aimed their rifles, but Evelyn didn't move. She let him stop inches from her face, the blade's heat brushing her cheek. "You think this is a game?" he hissed. "Games have rules," she said quietly. "This is chess." For a long, shaking moment, neither spoke. Outside, human vessels reconfigured into attack posture. The Empire's defense grid remained unresponsive, its control overridden by the very trade satellites it had forced upon Earth decades ago. The irony was delicious and terrible all at once. Evelyn glanced toward the window. "Your Emperor will want to surrender soon," she said. "When he does, tell him to ask nicely. We appreciate manners." Voren stared at her in disbelief. "You can't win. You're outnumbered 1,000 to 1. Evelyn looked back at him with calm pity. "That's the problem with counting, Admiral. It doesn't measure imagination." The comm sphere flared again, panicked reports overlapping. Fleets lost contact. Systems frozen. The capital's defense grid flickered into the human's control interface. A calm synthetic voice echoed through every Imperial channel. "Authorization confirmed. Phase 1. Containment achieved." Voren's blade dimmed, powerless. He stepped back, eyes wide. The realization crawled through his mind like poison. Humanity hadn't improvised this. They had waited for it. Planned for it. Needed it. Evelyn reached for her coffee mug, the one she had brought from home. The cat in the spacesuit winked at her through the fading red light. She took a sip and turned toward the Emperor's holographic projection, now flickering with static. "You should have listened when we told you we're patient," she said softly. "We don't conquer for power. We prepare for survival." The Emperor's image leaned forward, voice trembling with fury. "What do you want?" She smiled faintly. "Oh, we already have it." The hologram sputtered, lights dimming as the human fleet surrounded the system. From space, the Imperial capital began to flicker under shadow, the horizon filling with approaching silhouettes. Evelyn placed her mug down and folded her hands again. "Now," she whispered, almost kindly, "let's see how good you are at surviving." Outside, the first human ship decloaked, engines burning cold blue across the void, marking the end of the Empire's illusion of control. The Empire's capital trembled. Once a monument to eternal rule, it now flickered like a dying signal in the dark. The sky was fractured with the glow of human engines, cold, efficient, mercilessly precise. To the aliens below, it looked like judgment descending from the void. Inside the Emperor's hall, where gold once shimmered and confidence had reigned, the air was thick with panic. Ministers shouted across languages, generals screamed into malfunctioning comms, and through the center of it all walked Evelyn Cross, hands clasped neatly behind her back, as if she were strolling through an art gallery. She paused before the Emperor's throne, her reflection gleaming faintly in the polished floor. The ruler of 10,000 worlds stood above her, surrounded by guards whose weapons no longer hummed. His voice cracked beneath the weight of fear disguised as fury. "You've turned the network against us," he spat. "How?" "The codes were sealed within our core systems." Evelyn tilted her head, her tone gentle, patient, teacher to child. "Oh, we didn't hack you. We helped you. You let us build your infrastructure, remember? Communications, logistics, navigation, all for mutual benefit." She smiled faintly. "We just left a few breadcrumbs. Humanity's version of a thank you note." "You call this gratitude?" he thundered. "No," she said softly. "This is balance." All around them, the chamber's screens sputtered to life, showing fragments of chaos across the Empire's dominion. Entire fleets were stalled in orbit, powerless. Trade routes glowed with strange interference patterns, the hidden network of human shadow satellites blooming like flowers across the void. Every system the Empire had once controlled now whispered with the faint, chilling signature of human code. A trembling minister whispered, "They were never peaceful. They were waiting." Another voice, "They said they wanted alliances." "And we believe them," the Emperor growled, his pride cracking like ice. Evelyn turned her gaze toward the high balcony, where the first rays of the capital's artificial dawn shimmered. She could see the outline of Earth's fleet beyond the skyline, poised yet still, as though the stars themselves held their breath. Her voice, when she spoke again, carried the steady cadence of truth. "You mistook our silence for weakness. But silence isn't surrender, it's study." The Emperor's claws clenched the armrest of his throne. "You expect us to bow?" "Bow?" She gave a small laugh. "No. Bending is something humans do. You'll break long before we do." One of the guards, a reptilian soldier twice her size, lunged. Evelyn didn't flinch. A blur of motion appeared beside her as 6 armored figures materialized through the chamber's distorted air. The human generals. Each wore a different uniform, representing branches that didn't officially exist. Their visors shimmered like black mirrors, faces unreadable. The one in front, tall and broad-shouldered, spoke with an easy calm. "Ma'am, perimeter secured." The aliens stepped back instinctively. The air had changed. These weren't diplomats. They were predators dressed in discipline. "Generals," Evelyn said quietly, "let's begin." They moved through the chamber like ghosts. Weapons remained holstered. Not from mercy, but confidence. They didn't need violence to control a room. They carried gravity with them. The Emperor watched as his guards lowered their weapons, trembling, compelled by an instinct older than reason. It wasn't fear of death, it was recognition. Something deep in every sentient creature knew the look of an apex species. The amphibian minister stammered, "You came here to destroy us." "No," Evelyn replied. "Destruction is inefficient." She approached him slowly, every step deliberate. "We came to demonstrate consequence." The second general, a woman with pale eyes and a grin that never reached them, tapped her wrist console. "Command confirms target synchronization. Every Imperial fortress is offline." "Good," Evelyn said. "Keep it that way." The Emperor rose from his throne, towering over her. "You think this victory makes you gods? You are insects who've stolen fire." Evelyn looked up at him, calm and composed. "We didn't steal it," she said. "We learned how to burn." Her words fell like stones into water, ripples of silence spreading outward. She could feel the shift in the room, the moment pride began to decay into dread. Around her, the human generals exchanged glances, some amused, others grim. They had fought 100 wars, but this was different. No gunfire. No trenches. Just precision and inevitability. Then, softly, Evelyn broke the silence. "This doesn't have to end in blood." The Emperor sneered. "You think I would surrender to you?" She smiled faintly. "I think you will try to survive. That's what all creatures do when they realize they're no longer the hunter." For a fleeting instant, pity crossed her face. Not for the man, but for the myth he represented. The lie that empire equals immortality. Humanity had chased that illusion once, too, and learned how hollow it sounded when whispered from ruins. One of the generals gestured to her, murmuring, "Ma'am, transmissions intercepted, multiple systems broadcasting surrender signals." "Patch them through," Evelyn said. A dozen holograms blinked into being, alien admirals, governors, and soldiers. Their voices overlapped, panic, pleading, disbelief. "We never wanted this." The Emperor forced our hand. "Please, cease fire." Evelyn studied them one by one, then spoke softly. "The war is already over. You just haven't caught up to the news." Her calmness frightened them more than any threat could have. There was no cruelty in her tone, only the stillness of inevitability. Humanity had learned long ago that vengeance was messy. Precision, though, precision left echoes. The Emperor's voice shattered the quiet. "You will not dictate the fate of the galaxy." Evelyn's eyes found his, steady and almost kind. We won't. You already did when you declared war. He stepped down from the throne, his movements trembling with rage. If you truly are what you claim, then finish it. Strike me down. She shook her head. No, your majesty. History will do that for me. Behind her, the human generals turned toward the great doors. A rhythmic pounding echoed from beyond them, the march of imperial soldiers desperate to reclaim their pride. The lead general chuckled softly. Permission to greet them, ma'am? Evelyn nodded once. The doors burst open in a storm of light. Hundreds of alien troops poured in, shouting. The humans moved as one, 6 shadows gliding forward. No chaos, no hesitation. The air cracked, and then silence followed. When the smoke cleared, the floor was littered with surrendered weapons. The soldiers were alive, stunned, disarmed, kneeling. The humans had not killed a single one. Evelyn stepped through the fallen rifles. You see, she said quietly to the Emperor. We don't conquer. We correct. He sank back onto his throne, defeated not by force, but by recognition. Around them, the chamber's lights shifted from gold to a muted blue, the Empire's surrender code. Evelyn didn't smile this time. Victory always tasted like ash to those who'd known loss before it. The lead general turned to her. What now, Ambassador? She looked up toward the ceiling, where the Empire's crest flickered and dissolved into static. Now we teach them what peace really costs. Her wrist console pulsed again, a message from orbit. Phase 2 standing by. Awaiting your word. Evelyn hesitated, a shadow crossing her expression. Tell them to hold position, she said softly. For now. As the generals moved out, the Emperor whispered, hollow and trembling. What do you want, human? Evelyn met his eyes with quiet finality. Balance, she said again. And you're going to help me get it. Beyond the windows, the human fleet began to shift formation, their engines flaring like distant suns. The Empire's last dawn broke across the sky, not golden, but white and cold, the color of inevitability. The palace was no longer a place of command, but a tomb of pride. Its gilded pillars reflected the pallid blue light of surrender codes pulsing across the city. Outside, the imperial skyline burned silently. No explosions, only systems dying, engines freezing midair, towers dimming like extinguished candles. The once eternal capital now trembled under the quiet discipline of human occupation. Evelyn Cross stood on the balcony, wind pressing against her coat, hair drawn across her face by the storm of ash and electricity that hung over the city. Below her, the Empire's banners were being taken down one by one. Her reflection in the window looked like a stranger, a diplomat who had planned for patience but found herself at the edge of something far darker. She'd always told herself Earth fought only when cornered, that this trap was a shield, not a spear. Yet the silence below carried a gravity that frightened her, a stillness too complete, too obedient. Victory could be as cold as the void it came from. Behind her, the great doors opened. The lead general, Commander Hayes, entered with the weight of a soldier who had seen too much. His uniform was scarred, his voice low but steady. Capital secured. No resistance left. We're holding the throne room perimeter. Evelyn didn't turn. Any civilian casualties? He hesitated. Minimal. Our drones used non-lethal containment fields. The soldiers surrendered once the grid collapsed. They didn't even understand what hit them. That's the thing about empires, she murmured. They forget how to lose. Hayes stepped beside her, watching the distant horizon where the remnants of the Imperial fleet hung motionless, surrounded by a halo of human ships. Orders from Earth just came through, he said. Central Command wants authorization to initiate Phase 2. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. Already? They're worried about potential uprisings. They want to neutralize all planetary defense networks while we have the advantage. She turned to face him, voice quiet but sharp. Neutralize means destroy. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. Evelyn exhaled slowly. Tell them to hold. Hayes frowned. With respect, ma'am, holding means risk. The longer we wait, the more chance someone down there decides to be a hero. I know, she said. But I didn't come here to burn another civilization. We already did that once, our own. The memory flickered behind her eyes. Earth's deserts glowing with the ghosts of past wars, cities rebuilt over ruins that still whispered of fire. Humanity had sworn not to repeat history. But promises made in peace were often broken in triumph. From the far end of the hall came the faint echo of footsteps, slow, heavy, defiant. The Emperor had refused to flee. His ornate robes dragged along the floor as he entered, his crown tarnished with ash. He looked older now, smaller without his throne's shadow to magnify him. Yet his voice still carried the resonance of someone who believed the universe owed him reverence. "Does victory taste sweet, human?" he asked, his gaze cutting through her calm. Evelyn studied him for a long moment. "It doesn't taste like anything," she said. "Because it's not over yet." He gave a bitter laugh. "You speak as if you fear your own triumph. How poetic. You've outplayed us, outthought us, and still you hesitate to finish the game." "It was never a game." "Of course it was," he said softly, stepping closer. "You lured us here, knowing what we'd do. You counted on arrogance, and we delivered it. So tell me, Evelyn Cross, what's the end of your story? Do you crown yourself empress of what's left?" She met his eyes, voice steady. "No. I'm here to make sure humanity never becomes you." For a heartbeat, there was silence, the kind that feels like standing at the edge of a cliff. Then the Emperor smiled faintly, something cruel and resigned in his expression. "Too late." Evelyn turned away, unwilling to answer. The balcony shook beneath them, a thunderous boom rolling through the horizon. Hayes looked down at his communicator. "Explosion, Sector 9. A shipyard's gone. Looks like a self-destruct." The Emperor straightened. "Even caged beasts still have teeth." "Where?" Evelyn demanded. "Outer docks," Hayes said. "We've got human crews nearby, evacuating now." "Get them out," she ordered. But before the words finished leaving her lips, the chamber's walls trembled again. From the sky, a crimson flare rose, the Empire's emergency beacon, burning bright and defiant. Hayes's face hardened. "That's their distress call. It'll go system-wide. Every surviving fleet will know we're here." The Emperor's laughter was quiet, almost pitying. "And now you will learn what conquest costs." Evelyn's communicator buzzed. A voice from orbit, urgent and cold. "Ma'am, this is Fleet Command. The signal's spreading fast. Orders." She hesitated only a second. The weight of centuries hung in that pause. "Contain it. No destruction unless necessary." "Understood. Deploying jammers." The Emperor stepped closer, his voice dropping to a low whisper. "Containment is just a slower form of domination. You call yourselves civilized, but you hide the same hunger we once did." Evelyn met his gaze evenly. "Maybe. But we remember what it felt like to be powerless. That's our difference." He studied her, eyes narrowing. "And when the next empire rises, from your kind, who will remember then?" Her silence answered him more honestly than words could. She looked away, out toward the horizon where lightning flickered across the city's metal spires. "We will," she said quietly, though even she wasn't sure if she believed it. The room filled with the hum of machinery as her console lit up again. Hayes leaned in. "Command's losing patience. They're overriding the hold order. They're going to initiate Phase 2 whether you sign off or not." Evelyn's pulse quickened. "No. They wouldn't." "Cross," he said gently. "They already have." Through the balcony glass, she saw the sky ignite, lines of light racing outward, forming a vast geometric pattern across the upper atmosphere. Phase 2 had begun. The Echo Protocol, humanity's failsafe to dismantle any opposing infrastructure within minutes. Entire planetary networks would shut down, communication erased, data rewritten. Non-lethal. But absolute. Below them, the city's lights dimmed in cascading waves. The Emperor watched in silence as his empire dissolved beneath his feet. "And so ends the age of the stars," he murmured. "Not with fire, but with erasure." Evelyn stepped forward, gripping the railing. "I didn't authorize this." Hayes's expression softened with understanding, not apology. "Neither did I. But Earth doesn't need permission anymore. They just need proof." Her voice broke through the rising wind. "Proof of what?" He looked at her, eyes hollow. "That we're not like them." For a long moment, Evelyn said nothing. The sky above was beautiful, terrible, infinite, blooming with human precision. Every spark, every pulse of light was the end of a history that would never be written again. The Emperor turned his gaze skyward and smiled faintly. "You've won, Ambassador. But in your victory, you've built the next empire." The words struck her harder than any weapon. She wanted to argue, to insist that Earth's intentions were pure, but the silence beneath the stars offered no comfort. Humanity's ships hung like gods above the wounded capital, still, calculating, watching. Her communicator blinked again. A single encrypted message appeared on the screen, from Earth itself. "Phase 3 ready. Await your confirmation." Evelyn stared at the words until they blurred. The ash-filled wind pressed against her coat. Hayes was waiting for an order. The Emperor was watching her with the grim satisfaction of prophecy fulfilled. Slowly she whispered, "Stand by." "Ma'am?" Hayes asked. "Stand by," she repeated, louder this time. Her voice cracked the air like a verdict. The communicator fell silent. The sky paused mid-glow, as though the universe itself was waiting for her decision. Evelyn looked toward the Emperor one last time. "If I give that order," she said softly, "there won't be a galaxy left to correct." He nodded once. "Then perhaps, human, it's finally time you learn mercy is the most dangerous weapon of all." Outside, thunder rolled. The sky burned white. Humanity stood on the edge of its own reflection, and Evelyn Cross, the woman who'd trapped an empire, found herself facing the greater war, the one within her own kind.